In the last video, part 2, we made it all the way up to through letter N. To touch back on one important point about the nipple on letter B and the two arms here, which come from the 199 hierotype and the Norah stone nipples. I will just point out here we see the Norah stone nipples. There's breast here, the star goddess is back here, and there's a nipple. And there's the Kideon Phoenician bee with the two arms. And then we see the N1 hierotype. And then we see the Ramses full ceiling bet star goddess. And then Samos Island B, small capital B. So I hear this. If we go to Wikipedia, and I hear this almost every other month. Somebody will say, "Oh no, letter B comes from the house." Name means house in Semitic or son, Noah's son languages, and it's this hierotype. So this is all, pretty much everything in Wikipedia is incorrect. So next time somebody says letter B means house, ask them, show me a house where there's nipples on the house. So to continue, we'll go to 15th Phoenician letter, which is the Jed pillar. This was decoded about 100 years ago, but I was the first to quote it a month or two ago that these are the 4 pillars of Byblos. Search in Alphanumerics, you can read a dozen articles on that. So after a Set kills or throws Osiris into the Nile, the end bend of the Nile, he floats through the Nile up to the T-joint, and then he floats over here to Byblos, which is somewhere over here on this Phoenician T. And then he grows into a tamarisk evergreen tree. The king of Byblos cuts down the tree and makes 4 pillars for his palace. Isis goes and finds after she's done crying, she goes and finds the 4 pillars and begs the king of Byblos for the pillars, and she gets them back. She brings them back to Egypt, carry him down the Nile, and she makes a mummy out of Osiris. So this is the Jed, has to do with stability of the cosmos. It's also this part of letter K. So now we'll get to letter O, which is the point of why I even made this diagram. So here we see the Phoenician horned O. So this was decoded in the last 3 days. So these are the horns. This is the D16, this is the eye. Here we see that there's this golden snake, the red sun, cow horns, and then if you overlay the eye of Ra on top of the Hathor head with the horns, you get a circle sun with 2 cow horns. So this Phoenician person on this Kideon island in Cyprus was making a horned O's. So that means that it's half of the Milky Way and half of the Eye of Ra, which is complex mathematical cipher. So this is letter R, the ram horn. This is the dipole letter, the Polaris pole, which you've already seen here. And this is the Djed, which is the Byblos pillars, or the ecliptic, ecliptic pole. So these two got merged, two hierotypes got merged into one Phoenician lunar script letter. And then when the Greek alphabet formed, this got split into O micro, Omicron, and this became English 15th letter, but then the Phoenician O got also split into two letters, Omicron or micro O and Omega, which is mega O. This is the Milky Way, Omega. So here we see, this is the clue that put me on to finally decoding this whole alphabet, which took me 4 years to decode. Heavy thinking, research. But these horns put me on to how the Phoenician O was split. Our first Phoenician O was a compound letter of two hieroglyphs, and it was split into micro O and mega O. So now we'll go on to letter P. It's the 17th Phoenician letter. So this curved part here is the Phoenician P. Early Greek P's looked like this. So this is an attempt to draw the D16 hierotype carved in stone and simplified. So here, this vertical part is the Polaris pole, the star of the pole that connects the Earth in the center, going upward to the star that never moves, whereas all the other stars rotate. And this is the star that never moves, the first star of the Little Dipper. It's called Polaris now, but in Greek it was called the Polon star, P-O-L-O-N, and it's isonymic with the number 300 or value T. So letter P is the dipole letter. It's two poles, ecliptic pole and Polaris pole, and it's at the bottom of the raw I. Now we'll get to 18th letter is the, supposedly this is called Tasadi because they started with Hebrew Sadi and then reverse translated this back into Phoenician to make the word Tasadi. So we probably don't know what this word exactly means in Phoenician, but we'll just call it the Phoenician T, since this was decoded by me today. Well, I made this diagram, even though I've been working on it now for maybe 6 months, but I finally today overlaid the Misha T. We found a good fit. So the small part is the Black Sea, the long part is the Mediterranean Sea, and this zigzag corresponds supposedly to having to go down here, and then you get a long waterway here. So go down here, long waterway, short waterway, long waterway, and then there's this is the Thales teomap, an Aximander teomap, and we see a pretty good fit. And then we also, this is the entrance D to the Ramses 4-5 tomb, where we see a similar Tasadi-like T river, which is different from this is the tomb room Tasadi. So supposedly at the end, I've never really figured this out, but the entranceway Tasadi has the T that comes down, it's centered, like our normal T's. So supposedly that would be the Nile T. And then the one in the center, in the tomb room, is the Tasadi T, which means sort of like the when Osiris floats down the Nile, then he has to float over to Byblos. So just maybe this is the Byblos T, and this is the Nile T or something like that. But whatever the case, at least we finally found the Tasadi origin of the Phoenician T, at least to above 85% probability of accuracy. So we have this is the Europe on the top, Libya, or Egypt's over here, and then Asia. These words probably have ciphers. I haven't decoded them yet, but this T is on the Scorpion 2 mace head. So it's shown below. This is the Scorpion holding the letter A, and he's standing on this T. It means he's supposedly king of the world or something like that. From Abydos. This is the word origin capital of the world presently. Not presently, but it is. It's the origin of all the Egypto-alphanumeric family of languages, which replaces the so-called Proto-Indo-European language family, which doesn't exist. So here we see the Phoenician T became Greek T, 21st letter, and then they discarded the Djed pillar, and then T became the 20th letter. And then we're up to letter Q, Phoenician. Q is the 19th letter. In Hebrew it's called, Kaf is called the monkey letter. So this is one of the, and also in Greek, the horse of Pegasus has the same Kaf letter, and that's the Quicksilver horse. So this all adds up to the fact that this Thoth monkey is the origin of Q, which has been decoded on multi-levels before. You can read that in alphanumerics. So his tail is right here, and that's his body. And he's the one that greets the sun in the morning. That's why Q is next to the sun. QR, PQRS. This became, Q got shifted over to here. Greek Kappa, and then English Q. So now we're up to R. This was decoded by me 2 years ago, I guess. So if you look up V1 presently in Gardner, which is pretty humorous. We go to, boom, L in Gardner. I finally got my own personal copy. Anyway, these are all the Gardner symbols. I go to V. We see that Gardner says that V1 is a coil of rope. Specifically says that it's the front rope of a ship. But it's also equal to 100. So, and it also makes the phonetic of SN. So even though we give Gardner credit for, progressing, he's made a lot of bad errors. So this is not a coil of rope, it's actually the ram head. And this is the tomb UJ number tag 100. So we see there's the coil of the ram head. There's the coil of the V1 100. And this is all proved by the fact that rho in Greek equals 100. And they both have the same. This is the early Greek epigraphic forms of R, where we see the head, that's the leg of the ram about to headbutt. The leg of the ram, that's the head of the ram. Now, if you look at, you can just go to alphanumerics and type in letter R. You can read maybe 3 dozen posts on this over the last 2 years. So it also matches with the red crown has the same curl on the top. That means that it's a powerful king. It also has the same color, and ram also has the same phonetic. So this is one of the core proofs that all of the English language is based on Egyptian. And again, this is the sun in the most hottest summer state. And then as we've spoken about Letter R has to battle the 7th gate, a pep snake, every night in the stars, and he has to get past the gate. It's a large snake that blocks the river of his boat, the boat of Ra. And if he doesn't get past, the sun won't be born. It's all described in the Book of Gates. That's why R and S are next to each other. That's why Abraham is married to Sarah and Brahma is married to Saraswati. Same myth. Started in Egypt and was imprinted on all the Indo-European countries, either by Sesostris conquering the world and making everybody learn the new Egyptian lunar script, or it was transmitted kind of like how science is transmitted to new countries presently. So now we have R, and the letter S is, this comes from Isbet Abecedaria. I've already done this. If you take the Isbet S and map it to the I-14 hieroglyph, you find 98% match. So that proves that letter S is based on the I-14 hierotype, and also this is what we call script. And the reason we call it script is because they're signs, they're symbols that make noise. So the snake makes a hiss sound, and that gives a symbol that makes a noise. And all of these 28 signs are symbols that make noise and that code meaning, and it's based on the hiss of the snake. And so this is the pep snake, Phoenician snake, Greek sigma, small sigma. And now we're up to, so T, Phoenician T became this T. The last letter is the 20th. So this is a mathematical cipher. It hasn't been fully decoded, but we know that it's the 22nd letter has something to do with 5 squared. So 5 squared equals 25 cubits squared, or 25 of these makes some kind of farming land, and there's some kind of cipher that hasn't been worked out yet. And this is 12.5 cubits squared. So but anyways, if you look up the word cosmos, and the word cosmos in Greek equals 600, which is the value of chi. So it's kind of like a double cipher that has multiple layers of complexity to it. So letter phi is the ptah cipher. So phi and ptah both equal 510, and ptah is called the one-legged fire drill. So his body spins. His body is this top part, spins in the hardwood, makes the fire. The phoenix is born. That's where words fire, philosophy, friction come from, physics. It's the C19 hierotype. And here we see that there's the stick of ptah is his body. So now we think of this as trivial because we have electricity and we have matches, but 5,000 years ago, the invention of fire was a big thing. So this is the biggest god. 23rd Greek letter, phi. 24th letter is chi. It comes from the Phoenician chi. 25th letter is psi, and that comes from, there's no hiero type number for this yet, but if you look at there's 3 different star map coffin lids, and if you look at the Osiris rising picture, below them you'll see these 3 forks, and this all matches with the fact that Orion constellation rises in November and December, which matches up with the fact that this is over here is January and the months all line. So when Orion rises, the king as Osiris rises and he's reborn. This is where the story of Jesus rising from the dead comes from, or how Jesus rose Lazarus, whose name is a Roman rescript of Osiris. And the three belts of the Orion constellation has to do with the three pyramids and all that other information. And also psychology comes from here, and your psi. So supposedly in the world, soul comes from here too, the Greek word for soul. So the idea here is when you cease to exist, you become reborn, you rise again in the stars. In very crude, simplified summary. So later we see then Omega is the 26th letter, which is the horned O got split into O, Omicron, and Omega. 27th letter is Sampi. Sampi is cipher for Serapis. And Sampi and Janus both are isonymic. It means the secret name of Sampi is January. So in January 6th, the Egyptians raised the Djed, which means that they try to align this part of the eye pillar, move it upward, move it this way, so that the Djed aligns with the Ankh, and then the sun is born out of the top, which means the sun is born out of the top. The lotus rises, 1,000-value lotus. We'll get the new sun is a Harpocrates child. Horus child equals 10,000. And then the finger to the lip, the one finger digit equals 10,000 in Egyptian numerals. So that means that there's, according to Ovid, this means silence. There's no sound yet at this point. Supposedly the sun dies. Ra loses his power, like the sun gets cold at the end of the year in wintertime, dies, and it has to be reborn or relit by Ptah lighting a new flame for the new sun. So somewhere in between here, sound stops. That's why he has his finger to his lips. There's no phonetics anymore to the alphabet letters. So at some point after the 10,000, he takes his finger off and their sound is born. But the myth of this is that the first cry of the phoenix is what starts the creation of the cosmos process. So somewhere the first sound is made between here and here. But then next we get to the tadpole, which is 100,000. It's sort of like early animal life. And then we get the 10,000 value is these are all the numerals for Egyptian numbers. Number 100,000 is the tadpole, and 1,000,000 is this guy with his arms in the air, and he's got a palm branch in his ear. So supposedly the palm has to do with one palm is 4 digits. And this is what one palm is. So that means you're starting over the calculations over again. Or if you look at these other cubit rulers, one palm. So it's kind of like the year starts over again. So all these reduce 10,000, 100,000, 10,000, 1,000, 100, 10 is or 10 yoke, all reduced back to 1 in modular 9 arithmetic. So it's kind of like after you get to not kind of like, but mathematically after you get to 1,000,000, everything reduces back to number 1, and the whole alphabetic cycle starts over again. So I recorded this on June 8th, A69. It's been a year and 5 months. I made this diagram, and be cool.